What if I told you the secret to earning respect, even from your own kids, isn't yelling, arguing, or begging? Today, you'll discover how an older man's calmness became his greatest strength. If you stick around till the end, you'll understand why quiet dignity can be the most powerful weapon anyone can have in life. He'd lived long enough to know life always tests who you really are. Kids grow up, opinions clash, respect sometimes seems to vanish. In many homes, this turns into war. But he found another way. Instead of losing himself in shouting, he chose something unexpected: calmness as a secret weapon. And here's the detail that grabs attention: people watching from the outside might think it's weakness, but in practice, it's the strongest thing anyone can carry. This channel is new and we need your support to keep bringing you stories and life lessons like this one. Share it, hit like, subscribe now, and walk with us on this journey of learning. At first, it seemed impossible. After all, who wouldn't feel the urge to respond when a child's voice rises, full of challenge? He felt it too. But he'd take a deep breath, steady his tone, and make it clear he wasn't there to compete. A simple phrase like, "Let's talk about this later," had more impact than any fiery lecture. Why did this calm work better than 1,000 words? Because it showed control. While others got lost in anger, he stayed whole. One day, during a family lunch, one of the kids made a sarcastic remark in front of everyone. The table went silent. He could have raised his voice, but he just said, "That's something we'll sort out later." Then he changed the subject. Hours later, out in the backyard, they talked with less tension. They made a pact: criticism in private, recognition in public. And look at the effect. The next week, the atmosphere was lighter. What could have turned into a rupture became a new silent agreement. But there was more. He took care of his mind like someone protecting a treasure. Every morning, he'd write a few lines in a notebook: what he was feeling, what he needed, what he'd do for himself that day. It wasn't some fancy ritual, it was emotional survival. Because he knew, how can you expect others to respect you if you can't respect yourself first? His inner balance became his shield. Then there was the story of the family group chat. A crossed message, an offensive joke. Instead of getting tangled in online arguments, he typed, "Here, respect is the rule." Then he turned off notifications. He spent his time tending to real life, making coffee, calling a friend, listening to calming music. When he came back, he found a message from his daughter apologizing and suggesting new group rules. What looked like distance turned into a lesson. Little by little, he learned the difference between boundaries and walls. Walls push people away. Boundaries teach. So he made it clear what he accepted in his life: a balanced tone of voice, respected schedules, serious matters handled without an audience. And he followed through. A kept word is a brick that builds trust. His kids realized this father wasn't fragile, but he wasn't a tyrant either. He was a whole man, willing to talk, but never willing to humiliate himself. He'd wonder, can love and respect walk together even when the relationship is hard? The answer was unfolding right before his eyes. Every consistent choice, every act of self-care, showed that dignity inspires more than demands ever could. The result wasn't immediate, but slowly, his posture became impossible to ignore. And this was the quiet transformation that began to rearrange his life. The serenity, which once seemed like mere silence, was becoming an invitation for others to truly see him. He'd already understood that inner peace isn't something you ask for, it's something you build day by day. Respect, in turn, is the consequence of that peace. But life kept showing him, through stories close to his own, that each person finds a different path to reach the same lesson. And each path brought a revelation he treasured like gold. Jacob was one of those living lessons. A retired teacher, he spent years trying to convince his kids to recognize his worth. He argued, complained, demanded their presence, but the more he insisted, the more distant they seemed. Until he decided to change his strategy. He stopped begging for attention and started living like someone who already respected himself. What happens when you stop pleading and start showing, through action, who you really are? Little by little, his children drew closer, not because they were pressured, but because they felt proud of the calm man he had become. His calmness turned into silent authority, and his silence, a force impossible to ignore. Lucy brought another revelation. After years waiting for phone calls that never came, she decided to dance, read, and laugh more. Instead of waiting for attention, she gave attention to herself. So why, suddenly, did her children start reaching out again? Because they saw a mother who had started living again. She was no longer the sad figure sitting by the phone, she was a woman radiating vitality. And who doesn't want to be near someone who shines? Respect returned, not out of obligation, but out of admiration. Jack showed yet another side. He raised 3 children who, as adults, tested his limits in every possible way. Instead of raising his voice, he clarified the rules of their relationship. Here, conversations can be firm, but never offensive. Here, disagreements are welcome, but insults are not. Would this kind of boundary really be respected without threats? The answer came with time. Every time his children tried to cross the line, he held steady with firmness and consistency. They learned there was no room for disrespect, but there was always space for dialogue. That's how Jack showed them that boundaries are compasses, not punishments. These examples began to add up inside him like pieces of a puzzle. It became clear that dignity isn't just a nice word, it's a daily practice. It's writing 3 lines of reflection in a notebook upon waking. It's drinking a glass of water before responding to a provocation. It's knowing when to step away from a conversation when it turns into a battlefield. Small acts that build true respect. One episode in particular reinforced this conviction. During a family lunch, his son raised his voice in front of the grandchildren. Tension filled the table. He could have reacted harshly, but he simply said, "This topic deserves another moment." The silence that followed wasn't weakness, it was a choice. Later, out in the backyard, they talked. Together, they established a simple rule: in public, only words that build up; in private, space for adjustments. What if every household had the courage to create agreements like this? Maybe many relationships wouldn't fall apart. The same thing happened in a family messaging group. After receiving an offensive joke, he replied, "Here, respect is the law." He muted the group and returned to his routine: freshly brewed coffee, calming music, a call to an old friend. 2 days later, his daughter sent a message apologizing and proposing new group rules. His simple gesture had reshaped the entire environment without needing long speeches. Each of these experiences kept reinforcing inside him one certainty: respect is born from small, repeated, consistent choices. And the more he practiced, the more he noticed his own posture was quietly reshaping everything around him. But would this silent strength be enough to face the greatest test of his life? That question grew inside him, becoming more urgent with each passing day. He was ready to find out. The ground was prepared. Something unexpected was about to happen, and nothing would ever be the same again. He thought he had figured it all out, until the day life decided to turn the table. It was his grandson's birthday. The whole family was gathered. A sharp comment came from his eldest son, the kind that cuts deep. He felt the sting, took a breath, and simply said, "We'll talk later." Silence. Glances. He held his ground. But what came next would change everything. By late afternoon, the neighbor showed up with a portable radio, did you hear? The neighborhood elder is live right now. The nickname had been circulating around town for weeks, thanks to essays about respect and family that had gone viral. His children laughed, as if talking about distant celebrities. Until the neighbor turned up the volume, and the voice coming out of the speaker was his. What? The room held its breath. It was him, reading a piece about dignity in times of distraction. It was him, describing clear agreements, steady love, presence without humiliation. It was him, and they had no idea. The shock froze conversation. His grandson pointed and said, "Grandpa, that's you." The son who had just made the cutting remark stood motionless. He turned off the radio, no hero pose, and spoke calmly. "I needed to practice before I could teach. That's why I wrote in silence. Who can disrespect someone who lives exactly what they say?" That question lingered in the air. Then he pulled 3 envelopes from his bag. One for each child. Inside each, a single sheet with "family pacts" written in simple letters. 1. In public, we protect each other. In private, we adjust whatever needs adjusting. 2. Whoever yells pauses the conversation for 24 hours and comes back with a clear head. 3. Every Saturday, 15 minutes of uninterrupted phone time to align on the week ahead. No scolding. No revenge. Just clarity. If it makes sense, sign it. If it's still too soon, leave it with me. I'll keep loving you just the same. What if silent authority is exactly the path back home? The surprise wasn't over yet. He explained that those essays came from simple mornings, water, notebook, 3 lines about what he felt, what he needed, what he'd do for himself that day. Then a walk, and a commitment to practice boundaries without harshness. What seemed small became a guiding light. People from the community started writing to thank him. Children of other parents came back home. Couples created their own agreements. How do you ignore an example already changing lives outside your own? His daughter-in-law asked to speak. She admitted she'd shared, without knowing, one of the neighborhood elders' texts in her church group. It had helped a couple in crisis. The middle son picked up his envelope, read every line, and said he wanted to try. The eldest, the one who'd made the cutting remark, stayed quiet. He stood up, walked over to his son, and hugged him. Then he looked his father in the eye and said, "I knew the author. I just didn't know it was my dad." His wounded pride was giving way to a different kind of pride. He didn't celebrate like someone who'd won a fight. He made space. We can mess up 1,000 times, as long as we choose to start over. And then came the strongest turning point. His grandson brought a school notebook. "I need to write about my hero." "Can I write about you?" The question hung in the air like a bell. The eldest son took a deep breath, picked up the pen, and signed the pact. Below his signature, he wrote, "I want to learn from you." The room shifted in weight, not because someone had been defeated, but because someone had been inspired. His dignity, quietly cultivated, had crossed the bridge words alone could never have crossed. Who would have thought the neighborhood elder was the father they used to tune out? Now, respect had an address, and it started from within. The climax wasn't applause, it was consent. It was the whole family leaning toward the same direction. And for the first time in a long while, it felt like the future was within reach. That moment marked everyone. The signed pact wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a symbol of something greater, proof that true respect begins inside each person. He didn't win through force or demands. He won through consistency. And here's the big question: how many families could be reborn if someone had the courage to be the first to change? What his children saw wasn't a beautiful speech, it was a life aligned with what he wrote. Impossible to ignore. He didn't wait for them to come apologize, he chose to live with dignity even in the face of silence. And over time, that silence began to echo louder than any shout. His grandson calling him a hero was the perfect summary. Because being a hero isn't about superpowers, it's showing that living with clear boundaries and a calm heart can transform even the heaviest environment. And you, watching this, might be wondering, what pacts still need to be signed in your life? Not on paper, but in how you treat others, and how you let yourself be treated. He kept living simply, his walks, his writings, his pauses. But now, something was different. Every gesture carried the weight of inspiration. His children no longer saw him as an old man nagging them, they saw someone who reinvented himself. And that stirred something in them, because if he could do it, so could they. This story shows us that dignity isn't begged for, it's demonstrated. That love isn't self-erasure, it's self-preservation so you can offer your best. That silence can be more transformative than 1,000 speeches. And above all, it's never too late to rebuild respect at home. And here's the invitation, what if today you took the first step? It could be a word spoken calmly, a boundary set gently, or even the simple act of caring for yourself before demanding from others. Because in the end, respect isn't demanded, it's inspired. This channel is new and we need your support to keep bringing you stories and life lessons like this one. Share it, hit like, subscribe now, and walk with us on this journey of learning.